Anything special? Anything you want to avoid or front kicks?
That's Miro Lahtela. He's the current world #1 in Longsword hema. And yes, that's me he's fighting. We had around 10 exchanges that day, and I landed clean hits on him, but I also ate a lot of hits from him as well. And afterwards he told me exactly what I was doing wrong. But before I tell you what I learned, hi, I'm Michael Kozin, and I have over 2.5 years in historical European march, specifically with Longsword, because that's my favorite weapon. Of course, through sparring and competing in tournaments. And this week I got to do something that most of the people inside of the sport don't get a chance whatsoever, which is actually spar a top 1 in Longsword, the current one. Attend his workshop and actually ask him what I was doing wrong. And that's exactly what this video is all about. I also have my free community called START SWORDFIGHTING, the link in the description. And if you join it right now, I will personally reach out to you to help with your sword fighting. So how this happened? I met Miro Lahtela for the first time while taking part in the recent Blackhorns Cup tournament in Kurnik, in Poland. So he was there not to compete, but to judge and to commentate while being on a live stream on YouTube. And my coach, Ante Kolbryski, knows him very well. They've been swapping the first and the second places for quite a while already, and they also are good friends with each other, so that's good. Of course, because I was competing at the Blackhorns Cup, I didn't have time to talk to him then. Then he came to Warsaw, to my HEMA club, and that's where this video actually begins. And then I got to spar with Miro on our Wednesday training. So about Miro as a fencer, he's a very good, controlled and powerful longsword fencer who dominates the center line pretty well. He's not very explosive in his footwork, but don't get me wrong, of course he's top 1. He has to be very explosive, even more than me. But don't get me wrong, he didn't max out his footwork explosiveness compared to the other things that he's good at. He's very technically precise with his movement, with his blade work. He's very dominant in the center line. He knows how to use his geometry of the blade very well to control what's happening around the center. And I felt it immediately when I sparred with him. You can even see it on the video. And he's also a master of schielhau blade work technique, which becomes very apparent when I'll talk about his workshop that I attended afterwards. What Miro told me after the sparring was that he was very surprised by my timing of my counterattacks. So he acknowledged it openly, which I'm very grateful for. But my angles of my counterattacks were often wrong, in a sense that I had a very good timing, a very good, let's say, instinct of attacking, but my blade geometry often revealed, like, left me very exposed for a quick double. So my counterattacks had a very good instinct, but they didn't cover me afterwards. So in general, good timing means nothing if your blade is at the wrong place at the wrong time also, right? That's the gap that Miro identified immediately. And honestly, watching my footage back, you can clearly see it. As a bonus, he also told me his philosophy of the center line. So of course, after sparring, I asked him directly what I was doing wrong. He told me about the counterattacks, but he also shared his philosophy about the center line, which is that he reads the position of his opponent's shoulders to the belly button in the triangle shape, which of course forms like this triangle. I'll even show you when I'll edit this video out. That specific triangle tells him where the center line is, where the openings are, and how he can use this to his advantage, right? With his schielhau. So this triangle is a very simple concept, and it's very good. And of course, it's very devastating being at a top 1 level, right? So if I've described this philosophy slightly wrong, then Miro, correct me under the video in the comments. And also, while you're out there, all of you guys, go and check out the newest Miro's channel on YouTube called Struggle and Swords. So yeah, heads off. Also, as a bonus, I could tell you one thing, that the next day, on Thursday, At low gear sparring, I ran into the guys from Sellsword Arts. Seems very outlandish, I know. They came to our club a few days before to spar with Antek and Miro, and I exchanged just a few sentences with them while being at this first day training session. But unfortunately, they had just only like 10 or 15 minutes to stay, to spar with us just a little bit, and they had to go to the Poznań for the Pyrkon, like it's like a Comic-Con, like a huge Comic-Con in Poland. So yeah, they had to attend this thing. So unfortunately, I don't have like any photo with them, which is very unfortunate. I would like to get a photo with them someday. But yeah, it was very unexpected. Yeah, guys, it's a small world out there. It's a small HEMA world. So the next thing was the schielhau workshop. On the warm-up, Miro started off with something nobody in the room expected. He started off with bear movements. So walking through the entire sports hall while having your arms and foot entirely extended, and but with different movement patterns. We had like a confident bear, we had like a sad bear, we had like confused bear, which looked very funny. It was genuinely fun, but it wasn't pointless. It was losing everyone physically and mentally before the technical work started. Of course, getting people out of their heads into their body. Then we also had rock, paper, scissors with a partner, without swords, of course. The winner of the rock, paper, scissors had to close the distance with one foot action and one arm action to just reach their opponent, to touch them, to connect like the strike. And the defender had to defend with distance right away. And you score a point only if you manage to defend, if you lose in rock, paper, scissors, or if you're a winner of rock, paper, scissors, that you had to reach your opponent. Then you scored a point. We had two patterns that we could use. If we're right-handed, we could stay with our right foot forward, and we could lunge at our opponent if we want the rock, paper, scissors, which the lunge is a faster explosive maneuver forward, but it's shorter compared to the passing step, starting with a left foot forward while doing this. A passing step forward while also trying to reach your opponent with the hand. The passing step is slower, but it reaches further than the more explosive lunge, which is shorter. It was exactly a warm-up game that was also a fencing drill in disguise. The attacking footwork that you had to use, the defensive footwork to escape from the attacker. It was also like trying to read your opponent even before you've managed to see what he chose in rock, paper, scissors. That's all just fencing made a bit simpler. And all of it was wrapped in something that made just people laugh. That was actually one of the best warm-up that I ever seen. Let's get to what actually schielhau is. So what was that workshop all about? Miro said to us that schielhau is a technique from a German longsword tradition of fencing, described as being only successful made starting from your dominant side. So if I'm right-handed, I'm starting off from my dominant side. If you're left-handed, maybe then you start from the left side. What is the starting position of a schielhau? And I will not get into the guard itself, but I'll start with something very, very important, which is the full thumb grip. Not the half-assing the thumb grip like this under the crossguard. It's like completely on the flat side of your blade, even just slightly bit more to your true edge, like this. Okay, the thumb grip for schielhau is very, very quite important here. And the guard that we start, or like the position that we start our schielhau is, if we're right-handed, we start with our left foot forward fencing stance. Okay, so with our left foot pointing towards our opponent, our right foot could be pointing sideways, could be pointing also towards our opponent. It's not really important here. And the position of the sword should be somewhat like a variation, a more frontal variation of a wątak or posta di donna from your dominant side, with your crossguard specifically under your chin, not behind your head, not like this, but with your flat pointing towards your opponent and with your crossguard roughly under your chin, not touching it, of course, right? So what is the geometry of a schielhau? The entire goal of schielhau is to enter with a false edge cut into your opponent while you overtake the center line. You probably even bind your blade with your opponent's blade, so you somewhat control the opponent's blade while you also hit the head of your opponent. Of course, hitting the opponent's head with the false edge, not with the true edge, okay? Or at minimum, threaten the opponent's head with the cut very convincingly. Miro said that schielhau is specifically a cut. So hau part of the schielhau means that it has to go as a cut. But instead of doing the schielhau like this, going from the top, no, you're pushing your cut straight into your opponent. So just like this. Okay, even without the passing step. Okay, so the schielhau overtakes the center line with its geometry by also controlling the opponent's blade while also hitting the opponent's head at the same time. So the schielhau movement isn't this. It's not bind and then a cut. It's one movement. Geometry of that cut is the whole point. So the angle of entry and the arc of the cut itself, and also the end position of your arms extended forward, but also to your left side. So if you're right-handed, the schielhau ends with your crossguard to your left side, okay? Not to the center like this. The schielhau doesn't go just to the center line like this. It goes from your top right, if you're right-handed, to your left down position. And also remember to extend your arms while you're doing the cut. So you're also using the leverage of the hilt while delivering a cut. So you extend your dominant hand forward and a bit to the left if you're right-handed, and your non-dominant hand helps you to create a leverage, okay, to cut. It doesn't just also push your strike forward. It works like a leverage, right? Which also means that the technique of schielhau works only when you commit to it fully. So half-assing the schielhau doesn't deliver what you want to achieve, doesn't let you to overtake the center line of your opponent, and it will leave you exposed if you do it like this. Or if you go with a schielhau. It's not a schielhau also, right? It's a downward cut from your top right to your bottom left with false edge. And also Miro tackled something which he called a yes guard and no guard. Once you understand the geometry of a schielhau, the yes and no guards make immediate sense. A yes guard is the guard of your opponent. So let's say I'm your opponent and you want to do a schielhau into my head while also covering your center line from my afterblow. The yes guard is where I'm holding my longsword in the position where you can still cover yourself, right? Or my blade is like to the side or with my point in front of you, but still you can still go in with the cut while overtaking the blade with the schielhau. If I'm presenting you my blade and you can overtake it from your inside line, then this is the yes guard that schielhau works against. So schielhau is made to counter just simple posta breve, like Vomtag or this position. So a position where if you even go with the strike, you can still cover yourself from the immediate afterblow. A no guard is a guard where the schielhau will not cover you from the afterblows. And so the no guards are the position of the opponent's sword where he can double you from the angle where the schielhau will not cover you. So in this specific like space. So if I'm holding my sword here, I can just double you to the hands if you even hit my head. But if I'm also like here, here, so I'm not really presenting you my point, or if I'm doing it, it's on the outside line. So I can still like double you if I want to your outside line. So the schielhau will not work against it. Let's say you're doing the schielhau like this. I can just double you or go with the attack from the outside line. This is where the geometry of a schielhau doesn't apply. So you just don't force it, okay? So this is the difference between someone who just drills a technique and someone who understands when to use it correctly. Because generally, most of the advanced bladework techniques are situational, including schielhau, right? So schielhau doesn't work against every opponent, right? But it also gets to my next point, which Miro told us, that schielhau is a spectrum on height difference. Every schielhau is different. So this is a schielhau, and this is a schielhau also. Miro made clear for us that schielhau isn't one fixed movement every single time. Schielhau sits in the spectrum of height. So let's say the opponent that you want to go with a schielhau stays in this position, so his blade is somewhat lower than usual, his point also. So you have to adjust your schielhau to counter it also. So you have to cut lower, extend your hands lower, but also to the front, to your left, to cover from the immediate afterblow, while also cutting to the head or to the chest. But also if your opponent, let's say, stays in this sort of position, so a pretty high guard, then you have to adjust also your schielhau to counter that specific height. The geometry of schielhau stays the same, but you have to adjust to the height to cover the center line from the incoming afterblow. This is what makes a schielhau a real weapon to use in sparring, rather than just a drill. It's responsive maneuver. It's not robotic every single time. There were also my personal breakthrough moments. Miro pointed out to me that I have to extend my arms forward into like this confident position, right? So not half-assing like this. I have to entirely put my hands into the position right here to make the schielhau work. So I have to put my hands forward and to my left side. I also had to commit to the end position before I was there. I had to aim for it with full confidence to make it work. He also said that you have to trust the technique to make it fully work, because like I said, if you just half-ass it, you will not get the desired result of covering yourself and hitting your opponent's head at the same time. And of course, the false edge cut like this is shorter from the true edge cut, but that's the thing. The schielhau is a technique to counter-attack with into your opponent, who goes with just a straight attack, and the schielhau overtakes the bind with its structure by going deep, and not very deep, okay? Because you still have to extend your arms and you want to hit your opponent with the end portion of your blade, right? Not with the center or with the base part. So the schielhau technique is a bit difficult to figure out, right? Don't get me wrong. But the geometry isn't the worst thing. The worst thing to figure out is to trust the technique to get you what you want, right? You have to fully commit to it, and that's the hard part. And that's true for almost everything in sword fight. So in short, I had two separate sessions with Miro, so with the #1 in Longsword HEMA, which is of course true. So on Wednesday sparring and on Friday workshop, but we also talked with each other on Thursday as well. And there was one consistent theme running through these two sessions, which is geometry and commitment issues. Miro's feedback on my counter attacks being very good with timing, but kinda bad with its geometry, and also the schielhau workshops. The right technique only works with full commitment to the correct geometry. And being at a world #1, the margins are very tiny. And they're almost always about the position of your blade, the angle, and the commitment to the action. So in sword fighting, it's not always about being the faster or the strongest in sword fighting. Of course, being fast generally and being strong, it gets you better results. But in sword fighting, it doesn't always translate perfectly into this, because you can be very powerful, like you can be very strong, but if your structure falls apart with your blade, then it doesn't matter, right? Because even a weak person with good structure can overtake you and hit you properly without getting hit back. So generally, it's all about being at the right place at the right time, and of course with full commitment to the action or to the position that you want to achieve. That's what generally separates good from the world-class level. Miro didn't just teach me a new advanced bladework technique, which was a schielhau, right? Like, the deeper lesson behind of it was actually what it takes to fully commit to this specific action. And also, as a bonus, I will tell you, what if your schielhau gets parried?
And now we see this juicy target here. So once we see the hand, now from here, I'm going to step that way. I'm going to cut the hand with the schielhau. Bam, like this. And now the coolest thing here is that then now when they throw their afterbolt towards my head, ninja parry. Throw, they parry, I go to the hand, and then
then it's very good because you can still turn your hips to the side while showing your right side of your ass, while also doing the schielhau to the opponent's hands, while also backing off to the back, not to the side or to your opponent. So you throw a schielhau, you get parried pretty well, but you can still renew your strike and cover yourself with this ninja parry to not get hit back. So in short, if you ever get the chance to spar someone who's way better than you, then believe me, do it. And don't be scared to ask them questions after that, okay? This is one of the best things that you can do for your own growth in sword fighting. Ask questions people who are way better than you, okay? Even if those questions are very dumb. There are no stupid questions, there are only stupid people, all right? One session like this of getting your ass beaten every single time is worth 10 times more than just drilling by yourself. If you want to build this kind of foundation properly with specific drills, with specific structure, from which actually drills you have to start off and what gear you actually need without spending all of this money on the HEMA equipment, then join my free school community called START Sword Fight. If you join it right now, I will personally reach out to you and actually try to help you with your sword fighting progress, all right? This is me who runs all of this shit inside of this group, right? There is no one else, no other admin who does these things. I am there personally, right? And I am personally helping out beginners, intermediates, with what they're supposed to focus on, what they're supposed to train. And it's also a community of guys who are posting their own progress, they're celebrating their progress, they're asking for feedback, which is very important in this sort of sport. And yeah, if you have any questions for me, then join my community and ask me privately there, all right? And remember, always take the initiative.